Hi guys, today we're going to be talking about igneous petrology, specifically plutonic structures. Quick reminder that igneous textures describe small scale features on igneous rocks, such as like fine grained, coarse grained, or aphanetic versus phaneritic, such as shown here at the bottom left figure, and all of those terms describe different textures of igneous rocks. However, igneous structures describe larger scale features of igneous rocks, and we talked about a lot of these types of structures in the previous video when we went over volcanic structures. And in that video, we discussed two main types of volcanic deposits or flows that cause these volcanic structures. And these were regular old lava flows for mafic igneous rocks or mafic igneous lavas, and pyroclastic flows or pyroclastic fall deposits for felsic igneous rocks or igneous lavas. However, in this video, we're going to be talking about the structures that result from igneous magmas within Earth's surface rather than at Earth's surface. This is why it's called plutonic. Like we discussed in the classifications video, we talked about how volcanic is extrusive or out of the Earth on the Earth's surface, and plutonic is intrusive or within the Earth. So if you are unfamiliar with those terms, go check out the classification video. I have, I'll link it up here for you. But basically, plutonic igneous structures is the topic of today's video. And there are two main types we'll talk about: hypabyssal igneous structures and plutonic igneous structures. And these are both technically plutonic or technically intrusive, but hypabyssal just means a shallowly intrusive rock. So hypabyssal is just shallower than plutonic technically, but a lot of people just lump the two into plutonic. And just as an overview, before we get into the specifics of each one of these structures, we can see that hypabyssal igneous rocks form structures such as lava domes, dikes, and or sills, and plutonic igneous rocks or magmas form structures such as plutons, batholiths, and also sills and dikes. We can see this in the figure to the bottom right, but we will go over this figure in a lot more detail as we go through these structures one by one. So first, lava domes. Lava domes include both hypabyssal and eruptive or volcanic igneous structures. That's because the dome's surface is often cracked and lava comes out of those cracks and cools at Earth's surface, and that's why it is eruptive or volcanic igneous structures that it then forms, such as lava, as we talked about in the previous video. If you don't know what lava is, it's just kind of blocky structured lava. However, beneath the surface of the lava dome, magma is pushed into a dome shape due to intruding magma from below, and then the dome-shaped magma is shallowly solidified. That's why it is called a hypabyssal structure. It is shallowly cooled rather than extrusive and rather than fully plutonic. And we can see a few of these structures shown here in these pictures. Now moving to volcanic necks. Volcanic necks form because of the way a volcano erodes. So before we talk about that, we have to talk about how a volcano forms in the first place. So here we can see that when magma erupts from a volcanic event, so it finally reaches the surface of Earth, it starts to erupt, a volcano can form because the lava that comes out of that vent solidifies around it, forming a cone. So it's pretty simple. And the thing I just love about this figure is that there's literally like a tiny camera guy, if you look really closely, and it's like he's just sitting there filming this for millions of years. And that's just unrealistic, but hilarious. I love whoever made this. It's just, that makes me laugh. And that's why I loved this figure and included it. So there you go. I don't recommend trying to film this. You will be there for a long time and probably will die, not because of the volcano or lava, probably just because you will grow too old and you won't live that long. But moving on, now we know how a volcano forms. So how do these volcanic necks form? Volcanic necks form when that cooled lava that surrounded the vent erodes, leaving behind the exposed vent or neck of the volcano. And that occurs because the cooled and solidified vent material is much more resistant to erosion than the loose fragmented lava that had hardened around it. Now, don't get this mistaken for, oh, this volcano forms, the lava cools, and then it erodes, and the volcanic neck is left over right away. It takes millions of years for this process to occur, and so just know that it's not immediate. Next, dikes and sills. Dikes and sills are similar, as we can see in this figure. Dikes just are vertical and sills are horizontal. The reason for this is because dikes are formed by magma that intrudes fractures in the overlying rock. So they come up and intrude fractures and go across layers of the overlying rock, whereas sills are formed by magma that intrudes in between sedimentary or metamorphic layering. And so we can see these sills are horizontal because they're going in between bedding planes rather rather than across them through fractures like dikes are. We can see examples of a dike in this upper left figure going kind of diagonally, but it is going across bedding, so you know it's a dike. And we can see an example of a huge sill down here going in between bedding planes in this bottom left image. And something associated with a lot of dikes or sills is called chilled margins. The margins of dikes and sills often cool and solidify into finer grained material because they cool more quickly and insulate the inner material, allowing it to cool a little bit more slowly and become coarser grained than the outer edges of that dike or sill. And once again, this is called chilled margins. Dike swarms is another type of structure we can see in intrusive rocks. We often see a swarm or a large group of dikes with the same orientation and chemistry when you have an extensional tectonic setting that causes a lot of faults going along the same orientation. Therefore, the magma underneath that environment is intruding into those faults and fractures, causing the formation of these dike swarms. Now moving to structures in plutonic rocks. Plutonic igneous rocks or igneous magmas are a little bit further down or deeper down in Earth's crust than hypabyssal or shallowly cooling rocks, and they form structures called plutons and batholiths. Plutons are literally just irregularly shaped bodies of magma, so it's pretty simple. Pluton is that. Batholiths, however, are also bodies of magma, but the difference is just that batholiths are freaking huge. Batholiths are basically made of a bunch of plutons, and so they become really, really large over time as more plutons form and add on to that batholith. And another thing to consider is that the term batholith often refers to granitic magmas rather than mafic, and if you have large mafic plutons, they're typically called intrusions rather than batholiths. And other plutonic structures also include dikes and sills, like we saw with hypabyssal structures, and that's because dikes and sills aren't confined to shallowly cooling environments. They can actually forming plutonic structures. However, only shallowly in place plutons, dikes, and sills can preserve chilled margins, and those that cool deeper down typically won't. And sorry, this is meant to say plutons, dikes, and sills as well. This also applies to dikes and sills, and that's because deeper in Earth's crust, you're not going to get the same immediate cooling that you would on the margins of the dikes, sills, or plutons. You're going to get a pretty much slow cool of everything in the dike, sill, or pluton, and everything's going to remain relatively coarse grained. But enough with intrusions. What about inclusions? This is the last thing we'll talk about in this lecture. Basically, the last plutonic structure that we'll talk about is inclusions, and there are two main types of inclusions you should know about: xenoliths and autoliths. Now, what are inclusions in the first place? They're basically just fragments of different rock in your dike, sill, pluton, or whatever you have preserved in your plutonic structure. And so these fragments can either be from the same rock or a different rock. What do I mean by that? Well, xenoliths are fragments from the country rock, which is the rock that the igneous rock is intruding into. So if you have sedimentary or metamorphic rocks that your dike is intruding into or your sill is intruding into, and it rips off clasts of that previous existing rock as it's intruding into that rock and incorporates them into its own structure, that is called a xenolith. And so we can see this in this example down to the bottom left. The country rock shown at the lower right and upper left of this picture is marble, so metamorphosed limestone, and the intrusion or intruding sill we can see here has included some big clasts or inclusions from the pre-existing or country rock, or in this case our marble. And this is called a xenolith because it's not of the same composition as your igneous structure. It's from the country rock. This example is actually from a formation in El Paso called the Kastner Marble. I go to school in El Paso, so I thought it'd be cool to include something local. It's from the Franklin Mountains, and the Kastner Marble, as we can see here, has an igneous sill or granitic sill that's intruding into it, and obviously it ripped off some clasts of the Kastner Marble as it did so. And I just love this picture. It's so cool, and I love that it's local and I can just go look at it. If you guys have any local geology that you think is cool, tell me about it, and maybe I can include some examples in videos like this one. Anyway, moving on to autoliths. Unlike xenoliths, autoliths are fragments from the same rock that makes up your igneous sill or dike or whatever structure you're looking at. And this means that parts of the same magma solidified earlier then got ripped off and included in the younger magma. So it should have the same chemistry. It may have solidified before the magma that ultimately accidentally came and ripped it off and included it in its own structure, cooled, but it is the same composition and the same rock, therefore called an autolith rather than a xenolith. So that is all I have for igneous plutonic structures. And if you're watching this and haven't seen the video on volcanic structures, I encourage you all to go watch that. It goes really well with this video, and it has some really, really cool structures that lava forms. And so just go check it out. I think it's really awesome. Anyway, the upcoming content includes a video over phase diagrams, which I will do hopefully in the next video. And then we'll talk about silicate magmas in a later video. I'm not sure if that's going to be the next one after phase diagrams, or if we'll talk about the chemistry of igneous rocks, stable versus radiogenic isotopes, or basalt and mantle igneous petrology first. We're going to do one of those 4 topics after phase diagrams, and we'll see. But we're ultimately going to do them all, so I guess it doesn't matter when they come out to you. And if they're all out by now, just go check them out, and I'll appreciate that, and hopefully you'll get something out of it. So anyway, lastly for this video, like I always do, I mention what references I'm using, or what major references I'm using in terms of my textbooks, so you guys can go check them out if you want. I am using Essentials of Igneous and Metamorphic Petrology by Ronald and Carol Frost, as well as Earth Materials by Cornelius Klein and Anthony Philpotts, which I don't have with me right now, so I can't hold it up to the camera, but it is also linked in the description below. Both of these will be, so if you want to check them out, go down there and check those out for yourself. And lastly, if you are still watching this video, please comment down below for me what your favorite plutonic igneous structure is. I think I lean toward batholiths just because of their sheer size. I mean, they're so huge. I mean, how can you not like bow down to batholiths? But I also really like xenoliths because you can actually like see them a little easier at the surface of Earth. And I'm lucky to have a lot of local examples in El Paso that I can go look at. So I do like xenoliths a lot. But let me know your favorite or favorites if you can't choose in the comments below, and I'll be curious to see what you guys have to say. And that is it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. What's the word? I know it now. Oh, I lost it. Ah, damn. I feel like I'm about to say basilisk instead of batholith, and it's just reminding me of Harry Potter, and I really want to watch it now. But anyway, I'm lost. What was I saying?